know where east was. Thank you so much. Thank you. Very, very important to know where east is. You can stand if you like. Beloved Creator, thank you for this day. I'll come later. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this blessing. Thank you for the blessing of being alive and for all my days to come. Thank you for this conference. Thank you for the incredible mind and spirit that comes into this. Thank you for the honoring of in this way. Thank you for this group that has continued to honor him in this beautiful way. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Thank you for this beautiful gift of life. Thank you for the sun that gives us life, and energy. Thank you, sun. Some say father sun, some say mother sun, like the Celtics. Thank you, sun. Thank you for giving us life. Thank you for that. Thank you for the starlight. Thank you for the sunlight. Thank you for the light that's in our solar plexus that connects us to everything. The light of consciousness that penetrates all things. Thank you for the breathing aware air, the awaring air, you Gebserians. Thank you, thank you for the breathing aware air, the prana, the pneuma, the ruach. Thank you for the air that connects us to everything. Thank you for the breath that we breathe, that is connected to the breath of life. And thank you to the trees that give out the breath of life, that we give back to them in a sacred circle. Thank you, air. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting us be aware of you. Thank you. And thank you to the waters. Thank you to the waters above the sky, under the earth, in the rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans, and most of all, the water inside our heart. Thank you for the water that's in our heart that connects us to the heart of nature, that connects us to all the other two-leggeds, that connects us to all the beings in nature. Thank you for that. Thank you, water. And thank you, Pachamama, Mother Earth, that we're born from, that we return to, that we're blessed from, that we get ever regeneration from. Thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you, Pachamama, Mother Earth. Thank you for that. Thank you for all the critters on Mother Earth. Thank you for the earthworm that has no eyes, but it can see, that has no ears, but it can hear. Thank you for the earthworm. Thank you for the fungi. Thank you for the mushroom. Thank you for the bacteria, and I'm sorry we're always attacking you. Thank you, bacteria. Thank you. You are life. We need you. Thank you. Thank you for the bacteria. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for the soaring ones, the eagles and hawks that give us vision. Thank you for the eagles and hawks. Thank you for the little birds, the finches and jays that come and sing to us in the morning. Thank you for that. Thank you for the finned ones. May your waters be clean again. May we enter non-linear time, and may we have plastic not be invented. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, finned ones. We'll make your waters clean again because we are water and we're connected to you, and we bless you, we love you. We need you. Thank you, finned ones. Thank you, crawling ones. Thank you, all the four-leggeds. Thank you for the doggies and cats that keep us company. But thank you for the bear, the fox, the bobcat, the deer, the elk. So many beautiful four-leggeds. Thank you for that. Thank you for the ancestors of the four-leggeds. Thank you for the ancestors of the grasses. Thank you for the ancestors of the plains. Thank you for the trees that are ancestors. They're representing things. Thank you for our human ancestors. Thank you, Grandfather Gebser. Thank you, Grandfather Leon Secatero. Thank you, Grandfather Leon Secatero. Thank you, Grandfather Dan Moonhawk Alfred. Thank you, Grandfather Dan Moonhawk Alfred. Thank you, Grandfather Topasanica Canoe. Thank you, Grandmother Paula Gunn Allen. Thank you, Grandmother Patricia Clark Smith. Thank you to Grandmother Angela Sarian. Thank you to Grandmother Ruth Inga Hines. Thank you to my own parents. Thank you, Juan Aparicio Parry, Joan Parry. Thank you to all your ancestors and everything that has helped to bring you to this moment in time. Thank you for that. Thank you for the vibrations of the ancestors that have never gone away. Thank you for that. And welcome those ancestors in here. Welcome their wisdom into the room. Thank you for that special blessing. Thank you for that interconnectedness. Thank you for this group. Thank you. Oh. Oh. Thank you. You know, a prayer could be just the words, thank you. And to me, it is not a prayer if it doesn't come from wholeness and blessing. It might have been in Gebser where I read, I'm not sure. The origin of thinking, the word origin of thinking is thank you. So it's in at least 7 languages that I know of. So English, French, German, Dutch, Old Saxon, Norse, Frisian. The origin of thinking is thanking. So in English, it comes from the Proto-Germanic pankas, which is related to thought and the giving of gratitude or thanks. But it's also related to a proto-word tam, which means feeling. So for me, the very idea of the mental rational as being the province, the sole province of thought, I think is misguided. You know, to me, I think of thought as bubbling up from Mother Earth, through our feet, through into our gut, into our heart. Maybe later, hopefully, if we're blessed, maybe later it comes into rational awareness, and then that rational thought is grounded in living nature, which is the true meaning of rational. Rational coming from ratio, coming from a relationship between things. How did we get so far away from that? How did rational become so fragmented, so disconnected from nature, and how so we begin to think of it as the deficient realm, you know, of rational thought. So the alive, if you want to say efficient, or I wouldn't use a word like efficient, but just whole blessing realm of rational thinking is one that is connected to living nature. I was blessed to be able to write a book called Original Thinking, which was inspired by dialogue circles that the Seed Institute held between 1999 and 2011. That's why I asked you to be in a circle. For me, a circle does represent wholeness. It represents healing. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's not going to be linear. And it is outside of time. We have all the time in the world here. I think of time as air, something we're breathing. So it's okay. We can connect back with the linear clock sometime, but for now we have all the time in the world. But one thing I love about dialogue is it allows you to slow down. You know, so I was born in New York City, where conversation was a ping pong match, as you probably have observed, Jerry. And that's very stimulating, but it makes it harder to go deep unless you make some good friends like Jeremy, and then it's okay. All right, but and I wanted to. I started writing the book Original Thinking, and I hadn't even. I'm not sure if I'd heard of Gebser yet. Not sure. I certainly had heard of Sri Aurobindo and really loved his work. That paralleled Gebser a lot. But my friend Lee Nichol, who was the editor of David Bohm's work, recommended Gebser to me, and that was a very good recommendation. Then people at the, where's the California Institute of Integral Studies, Alfonso Montori and Leslie Allen Combs were also very interested in Gebser. The Seed Institute was blessed to inherit a dialogue circle from a tradition that started in 1992, when Leroy Littlebear found out about David Bohm and approached him to join a circle. And then 7 years later, after that started, my buddy and I, Dan Moonhawk Alford, cooked up the idea of having a dialogue circle. And in that first circle, Leroy Little Bear, who I would call Blackfoot Zen Master, he asked the question, very simple question, but is it possible, and I'm going to pose it here, so is it possible to come up with an original thought? So right now, on October, whatever we date this, October 8th, 2016, in linear time, is it possible to come up with an original thought? So I want to throw that out to the group right now. And I usually bring a talking staff, but since I was flying, I just have prayer beads. They're going to have to work. Anyone, we're going to have a little time, just a little time to talk about this. Is it possible to come up with an original thought? You Gebserians must have something to say about this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, simply because what you just said was it's original, it's from origin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Then we'll go to you. All right.
I suppose that everyone's thoughts, if you're thinking in like an archetypal space, like everybody has the same kinds of thoughts. But in terms of the details of those thoughts, they're original. I'm not using really the Gebser form of original right now, but there's never going to be another time that the weather patterns are exactly like this day. We see storms or cloudy days all the time, but the clouds are never going to be in this exact formation ever again. So there's larger patterns that repeat endlessly, but there's also uniqueness in every single moment, and every thought, and every human being as well.
Thank you. Okay, please pass down to.
So I almost want to say no to this, in the sense that I think that we are often under the tyranny of the new, the pressure to believe that there can always be something new, and in truth, it's a new way of seeing what's always been there for me. So I myself do not think that there is original thought. I think we use the tools of what came before to create thought that we have now, and that it evolves from that, and it modifies and morphs, but it contains everything that's always been.
Mm-hmm. Okay, two. I'll pass it on. As you feel the prayer beads, if you feel like breaking out into chanting, it's probably it's in the beads.
Well, as long as you don't ask me to dance.
Will you dance? He won't ask you, but I will.
Well, I think that's a nice way to connect. Someone would say yes, and my colleague here said no. The answer for me is yes and no. Let me give you an example, a metaphor. Thoughts, Charles Sanders Peirce, the American semiotician, would say thought is a sign, S-I-G-N, and sign can change all the time. So ideas, concepts, the elements of ideas are like hues, colors. You have a palette of colors. You can take the palette and paint your painting. I will use the same palette and I can paint another one. Yours will be different than mine. But the ingredients of thought are not new. Ingredients are around and we pull from it and compose. That's why the idea of composition is wonderful, like creating a symphony or a painting. So it's one of the paradoxes in life that it's just unbelievable. That yes, it is yes and no.
Okay. All right.
If we consider the all as being infinite and eternal, then something new is always continuously bubbling up. And how we perceive that new bubbling up will determine how we see it and how we perceive that. And so thought will take its own course depending on our collective consciousness, if you will, and whether that is a new thought or whether it is a continuation of some other thought.
Very good, thank you. All right, we're gonna go over here. Remember what you said.
Our age is retrospective. It builds the sepulchres of the fathers. We write biographies, history, criticism. The foregoing generations beheld God and nature face to face. We through their eyes. Why should not we too have an original relation to the universe? Emerson. Nature.
Point to poets.
I kind of wanted to riff on what Farouk was saying earlier about paint and what you were saying about the unique combination of things, because we all have thoughts and there always will be clouds, and the stuff that makes up each moment continues maybe from moment to moment, but the way in which they come together is novel. Sort of like ourselves, we're made up of generations of DNA. We're made up of all histories, all living things, and all matter. And you wouldn't say that that's necessarily new, but the way that we come together is absolutely new. Each person is a singularity of uniqueness. And so I think thought is also capable of that kind of novelty, of a kind of singularity, of an assemblage of things that are there, but are always kind of recreating themselves into sort of a regeneration.
Okay, I'm gonna recognize one or two more. Remember what our first speaker said. Okay, let's see. There we go. Michael.
I wasn't at that first meeting, but at a later seed gathering, Leroy Little Bear introduced the idea of thought thinking us, and the metaphor of the field that contains all thoughts, to which we tune in like a radio receiver and can get this thought on this day and maybe this other thought on another day. And I'm just going to stop there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Good thoughts. Good station.
Also, for me, the original thinking comes through us, speaks through us, and it's related with everything. So it's related with this sunny when I'm speaking or not. And for the moment, I'm a little bit gray too. I'm a little bit, I got a sadness inside. So for me, it's better that it's, when I'm talking, it's great because I'm connected to it. So when I'm saying, nature is saying it's true, it's sad. And so I think this original thinking is there, it's related with all of us. And nature is the main thing or closer thing that we got there to see, to hear, to touch this original thinking. And well, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. Anybody else have a passionate thing they want to say before we move on? Okay, passion. All right. Well, last one. Thank you. Thank you. We could go all the whole time.
Ecclesiastes tells us there's nothing new under the sun. Heraclitus said we can't step in the same river twice. And chaos theory tells us we can't step in the same river twice.
Once.
There might not be a river. So I think it comes down to our definition of original thinking is it original with me, the thought that I'm having, or is it original with the origin?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Okay, thank you. We can certainly go for hours and hours with this question or any one of these questions, but thank you for that. From the very first moment Michael said origin, around to nature affecting how you're thinking, which is good because in that dialogue that we held in 1999, this very interesting thing happened, which was that all the Western people in the room, with the exception of one or two, because I know Lee Nichols didn't happen for, and maybe one other, all the Western people in the room tried to think of something brand new that had never been said before or done before. Even my buddy Dan Moonhawk-Alford, who was steeped in Native America, tried to think of a linguistic sentence that had never been said before, something about he said something about the queen, if the queen watched on TV, the castle burning down or something, you know, create some new conjugation, I don't know. But anyway, it's a futile exercise. This just came out, you know. There really is nothing new under the sun, as many of you accessed, talking about using the same palette to create new forms and new originating forms. That's beautiful, beautiful thoughts. But the indigenous people in the room that day in July of 1999 took the question completely differently, as Michael did at first, you know, as an invitation to connect to origin as a place, and a place of ever-present regeneration, a place of, you know, that is feeding them, a place even of what Grandmother Leon Secretary said, a place of original instructions for how to live on the planet, you know. And this was very interesting to me. And it was then, or a little bit after that dialogue, that I realized that this was the divide between Western and indigenous consciousness, where Western consciousness has replaced place with time. That's what we've done in Western society. So we're obsessed with when we talk about the origin of the universe, we're talking about when it happened. We're obsessed if it's 13.8 billion years ago, or, you know, or this or that. Where if you ask the Hopi, you know, when, you know, ask them about their origin stories, they're going to take you to a place in a little Colorado River, a place of emergence, the place where they came up. If you ask them when was that, they'll probably say something equivalent to English about, you know, a long, long time ago. And that's about it. That's about the interest level in when, you know. So what's the ramification for this? You know, it made me realize that how Western culture led up to what Gebser focuses on around perspective. Perspective, because what is perspective? You know, that's a shift that happens in Leonardo da Vinci's time, as you guys probably know. So for Leonardo, when he's a young man, he thinks about the energies of nature coming to the eye. And the eye is the passive receiver. Nature is alive. Nature is vibrating. Nature is emanating the energies toward him. But you know the story of perspective. It's such a cute story. If you don't know the story, then I'm gonna share it with you right now. You know, the Bruna Shelley, you know, really innocently wants to paint the world as God saw the world. So he pokes a little hole in his canvas. He puts the mirror behind it, and he creates a 3D illusion on a 2D canvas. And nothing would have changed except, this other cat, Alberti, comes by, 25 years later and writes a book. It's actually only a part of the book, but a part of the book describes how you can systematically create linear perspective, where you can set up the vanishing point and yada yada. It gives instructions. It's a instructional manual and it goes viral. It gets translated in 5 or 6 different European languages. And then it becomes to be thought of as real, so that's the problem. It's like we don't have one stationary eye viewing the world. We have 2 moving watery eyes. They're 90% water. We're immersed in the world. So is it a superior way of viewing, to view the world in a detached way, is out there, and to use linear perspective? No, it's just a different way of viewing that has certain benefits. It does have benefits. It did allow for a change in culture. But it also flipped the way we looked at time. So you may realize that the ancient Greeks thought of not the future as ahead of them, but the past. Past was ahead of them, where they had eyes to see, because the past had already manifested. So they could see the past. It had come into view. The future was behind them, not in a line, but just enveloping them from behind where they couldn't see it. Kind of like Carlos Castaneda talks about death stalking you from behind. So death's in your future, and it's stalking you from behind, you can't see it. But what are the ramifications of the future being ahead of us? When the future is ahead of us, then we replace place with time. Then our origin point is where we go from, and we move away from origin, as Gebser described, and we confuse that distance from the origin for progress. And that's kind of how we get addicted to this concept of linear time. And once we become accustomed to that, then linear time, you can begin to understand what happened with Western culture. 35 years ago, approximately, a buddy of mine at the California Institute of Integral Studies, who was from India, came there, just asked me the question. He said, Glenn, what is it about Western culture that caused it to go on this path of colonialization? What is that? And it took me a long time to think about that question. It was a great dialogue question, but I finally realized that it was our view of linear time that caused that. Because the very idea of linear time and the very idea of linear progress made Western people surreptitiously, it started to make us think that we were at the head of the parade. And that's the big break between Western culture and other cultures around time. So Western culture is so in love with linear time. And when we went on colonization, of course, we met cultures that felt differently about time. It's still infusing our culture. It's a tough thing. Because linear time is very harsh. It calls for cuts. We're going to do this talk between 11 and this 11:55. Okay, that's it. All right. But you Gebserians, I think you can rise above this. I think you can. So I want to ask you another dialogue question, if you will. Grandfather Leon Secatero said something very interesting also in that first dialogue, and might have said it in other ones too. He spoke about the elements a lot. Of course, the elements are very sacred in Native America, as you can tell. I feel the same way in my opening prayer. But he spoke about light, air, water, earth. But he also spoke about time as the 5th element. He spoke about time as the 5th element. So I want to ask you how that idea, that native idea, it's not just native, but of time as the 5th element, how does that relate to Gebser's eruption of time, or any idea Gebser had at that time. I want to put that out to this circle again. Okay. Excellent. Come forward. Thank you.
I think that Gebser would not posit origin as a place, but would suggest that origin is seeking to express itself having moved through a linear illusion of progression to establish a temporalized space as opposed to a spatialized temporicity, which is what we are presently, as Gebser would say, viewing even the present as a space that cuts one off as a space between the past and the present, but that the eruption of temporicity is when the totality of past, present, and future is immediately present in our experience. And that's the meaning of the eruption of time. So that it's the integrality of it is in being able to recognize space as time and time as space, not one spatialized, one temporized.
Okay. And how does that relate to time as the fifth element?
That relates to time.
Do you want to be
Oh,
closer to that?
no.
All right, you can.
Well, the Greeks also had the notion of time as the fifth element insofar as there is which is an expression of origin that moves through and gives, as water almost, through channels. The quintessence is the fifth phase of elements in Greek thought.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else?
Quintessence.
The quintessence.
Fifth essence.
Fifth, the essence, the fifth essence, yes.
Just,
Yes.
just a comment on quintessence. It is the synthesis, or the integration, if you will, of the other form. Not separate from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I just have an image of the ocean of time. We happen to find ourselves in a particular part of the ocean of time, and there are no lines in that ocean of time. And that ocean of time includes air and water and everything. And that concept was given to me by a painter, Michael Spafford at the University of Washington. And no one single sentence has meant so much to me as that concept that we're in an ocean of time. And you don't know where you're going to find yourself within that ocean of time at any time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pass down all the way over.
So I think two things. I think of Richard Eliana's idea of illiquid world beyond time, which is a mythical concept. We don't live in that time, and we do live in that time. But we don't live in that time in the sense that our present moment, it's a mythical construct. And so to imagine that we're going to arrive back at that time in any kind of a concrete way, Gebser would say that's not possible. Gebser would say you can't understand the age perspective in a concrete way, but you have to have concretized symbols of it to get at it. So for me to remember that it's a mythical construct, and that the rational it's not an either or for me, but with any of these, it's kind of like what you were saying with the quintessence, that is the integration of all of them. And what you were saying also, that the movement into the a perspectival is a regression in a sense. So,
Interesting. Anyone else? Okay, back to Michael.
Just a quickie. We talk about elements, so what came to mind and kind of bubbling up from the origin was Luc Besson's movie, The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from, but law of vibration is the fifth element. It's a quintessence.
Yeah, I want to speak a little bit about, through my level of understanding of this, and I'm not going to refer too much to Gebser. But when I heard Grandfather Leon say time is the fifth element, you know, what it started to mean to me was like time was everywhere, like you were just referring to. You know, that it is in the vibration. It's the energy. It's the animating principle of the cosmos. Maybe not the quintessence that puts everything together, but it's what moves everything. You know, it's hard to say what time is, but one thing we know about time is it moves. So, and the ancients called it fohat. You know, I mean, it's like this. At least I got that from Blavatsky, and it is that animating principle of the cosmos. I thought that's pretty cool, and I've had that. I don't think I understand Gebser's eruption of time. Thank you for the beautiful. One of the blessings of doing a dialogue circle is I get to learn something, so I'm not just, you know, presenting what I might think I know, even if I don't really know it. But this way I get to learn from all of you, so thank you very much. I feel like place is always moving through me, and the ancestors are always moving through me. One of the reasons I pray to the ancestors every day is it's always here. It's always here, you know. I do think it originates from a place, you know, and I do think our thoughts come from that place. Our thoughts come from the elements. This is particularly obvious with water. Now, we're 70% water. So, but most Western scientists can't conceive of the idea of water thinking. But we're 70% water, and we can think. So what's going on there inside our bodies? And what really is going on outside is not limited to our bodies. It's an interconnection with the entire atmosphere. And think about it, it's in the language, all over the language. So our thoughts are like little drops of water that drop down and they accumulate and they flow into a stream of consciousness. That's what we refer to, a stream of consciousness. Now that stream of consciousness, most of it flows into the mainstream. But some of it, because it's a little too radical or whatnot, goes underground. It goes underground. And there, it waits until the right time for it to bubble up, perhaps through a spring. Now, the water that flows into the mainstream eventually goes into rivers, and the rivers go out into the ocean, and that's where the real pull of thought is, roughly equivalent to our bodies. You know, 70% of the planet's surface, 70% of our body is water. But there in the mainstream, in that big ocean of thought that we're swimming in, we become, very unaware of the water. It becomes our tacit knowledge. It just becomes the knowledge we never pay any attention to. But hopefully at some point, that tacit knowledge becomes stale, and we recognize it as stale. And then it evaporates up into the sky. And then there, I would imagine that it hobnobs with some other idea clouds, has a big party, a gathering, a dialogue. And when the time is right, it creates a brainstorm of thought, which comes back down to the earth and that's how maybe you get a new paradigm. You know, and that's how I would define paradigm. Our entire thinking process is completely and inextricably related with the waters all over the planet. And all the waters are in relationship with each other. This is something I learned from the Hopi. And I learned it from Vernon Massa Yespa in the most painful way, because he's the head of Black Mesa Trust, and out on the Hopi Reservation, the Peabody Coal Company had come in, and they were creating coal slurry for many years. And the way the Peabody Coal Company explained it to the Hopi, there's nothing to worry about. There's this much of a underground water table, and we're just taking a little bit, even though they were taking millions and millions of gallons of pristine water virtually every day. They said it's not going to affect anything. It's just the underground water. But the Hopi understood that the underground water had a relationship with the waters above the ground, and had a relationship with the rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans, had a relationship. They spoke to each other. And sure enough, when the Peabody Coal Company was doing that coal slurry and taking those millions and millions of gallons of pristine water, those springs that the Hopi depended upon to live, because they live in the mesa, way far away from any large body of water, those springs that they depended upon for their water supply started to dry up. So Vernon Massa Yespa, who now goes to the United Nations and talks to the United Nations about this concept of water, is helping to change the world, to come into awareness of our inextricable relationship with water. And I couldn't think of anything more important. Because as long as we think of water as dead, we will continue to treat it in the way that we do. As long as we think of the hydrological cycle as something that water does and has no relationship to us, we're going to continue to screw up the water. We'll drill through sacred water to get oil. We'll take all that risk because we don't care about the water, or we don't think we care about it. So it's really, really, really bothers me. And for me, what it means to be a human being is to recover that inextricable relationship with all the elements. That's what it means for me. Now, I think I advertised, what do we got on the linear data? I think I advertised that we were actually going to talk about politics a little bit. And you etymologists probably realize that politics comes from the Greek polloi, many, and the modern word ticks for blood-sucking parasites. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Doesn't have anything to do with that. But it sometimes seems so. But, you know, I kind of want to talk about politics in the same way I was just talking about water. Because politics is too important to be left to politicians. Too important to be left for politicians. Just like the water, the way that human beings interact, that's politics. That's how we interact together. I think we need to start looking at that. What's our linear time frame?
Yeah, I'm very embarrassed to say that we're out of.
Oh, you're out of linear time? We're out of it? Yeah, I saw your preparation there. Okay. Well, I'm just wondering about it. I want to tell one more story. Okay, this is it. Let's see. I want to tell the story of. You might have heard this story. The story about a king. Okay, and a king that he commissioned a map. He wanted to commission a map of the kingdom. And so he got all the finest cartographers in the land to create this map. And they worked on it for quite a long time. They came back and they presented before the king this big map that was, like 6 feet by 8 feet or something. It was beautiful. And the king looks at it, says, "Thank you, it's beautiful. But where are my sacred mountains?" And I said, "What are you talking about? We have the Pyrenees, we have the Alps on the map." But the king says, "No, those mountains over there, they're my sacred mountains." He goes, Your Highness, those aren't mountains, those are just hills. You know, I mean, they don't even get snow on them ever or anything. He says, no, those are my mountains, I want them on the map. And so they put them on the map, and they name them after him. But it takes them a long time to do that, because to get that scale, to count those mountains, they had to redo the whole map. And the king is very pleased until he says, but where's my river, my sacred river over there? And they said, what are you talking about, Your Highness? That's a stream and it runs dry half the year. That's not a river. And they said, no, I want this on the map. So the king insists, and they go away for 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 months. But they've got that stream on the map. They've now named it. They've named it a new river after the king. And then the king is pleased. But he says, where is the house I was born? And they say, Your Highness, you were born of humble beginnings. How can we possibly get your little house on this map? And he says, no, my home is central to my being. It has to be on the map. So now they disappear for 2.5 years. The last map they brought in, it was so big that they unfurled it, and they couldn't even unfurl it inside the king's castle. They had to put it outside on the grounds. But this time, the map is exactly the size of the kingdom itself. So to unfurl the map, they had to clear everything from the kingdom. They had to clear every they had to clear everything, every building, every tree, every little snag, everything. But the map has everything on it. It has every dry stream bed, every snag, every tree. It's got everything on the map. And everybody is so happy and pleased at living on the map. Until the rainy season comes. And the water comes down and starts to crumple little areas on the map. And then, right from under the map, little green shoots and buds start coming up through the map. And people are saying, this dirt and stuff, people are saying, what's this stuff? What's this stuff? And that's where I think humankind is at. We're rediscovering the real. Thank you.